Like instead of saying woulda, shoulda, or I wish it was this way, it's like, well, what action step can I take to change it? Or what can I focus on so I can still enjoy this part of life and not feel like I'm missing out because I have this situation.
Welcome back to Happiness in Progress. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy Award winner, former journalist, mom, wife, and just a person looking for more joy in the everyday. On this podcast, you'll hear stories of inspiration, overcoming, and perspective that will help you become the best version of you. This podcast is brought to you by the Mail Tribune. Check out mailtribune.com for more podcasts. If you like this podcast, don't forget to click subscribe and give it a rating in iTunes. It really helps me when you rate it in iTunes. Okay, today you get to hear from an incredibly inspiring woman who has been featured on the Today Show and in magazines including Health, Fit Pregnancy, Shape, and Disability Magazine. Amberly Lago is the author of True Grit and Grace, a TEDx speaker, and an expert in the field of resilience, transformation, and health and wellness. Amberly was involved in a motorcycle crash that mangled her leg, ultimately giving her a painful nerve condition called CRPS. It's nicknamed the suicide disease because many people with the condition take their own lives because the pain is that bad. Chronic pain is a real problem in our country, and we talk about how she deals with daily pain, how she breaks the pain cycle. She tells us how she's found light in the dark, what she does every morning, and how gratitude helps even when she's dealing with this physical pain. So let's get to it. I'd like to start by just giving you the floor and having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
I moved to California almost 30 years ago because I was a dancer my whole life and in track and an athlete. And I knew from about the time I was about 8 years old that I wanted to move to California and be a professional dancer. And so kind of despite my family and friends being like, oh, what are you moving to California? You're going to be right back. I moved out here with the $1,200 that I had saved up working all these different kinds of jobs between babysitting and teaching dance and scrubbing toilets. And I found a place to live. I landed my first music video with MC Hammer. If you remember that song, Can't Touch This.
Of course.
I was in that video. And I loved dance, although there were times when there was a lot of rejection. Auditions were pretty tough. But I danced for years before I got into the fitness industry, and I started doing personal training, and that was really a career. I had trainers that worked for me. I taught a trainer. It was a certification preparation course where I taught trainers how to get certified as a trainer. I did fitness videos. I was sponsored by Nike, and I was, nationally recognized as a fitness coach. And so my whole life was active, and it all changed when I was hit by an SUV. I was on my motorcycle coming home from work. I had just ran my best time. I ran like 11 miles that day, ran in my best time, finished training clients. It was a holiday weekend. And I'm telling you, in the blink of an eye, your whole life can change. Yeah. And little did I know just how much that would change the course of my life.
You talk a lot about timing in the book, that the run that morning being your best time, really that puts you at the wrong spot at the wrong time.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember getting on my bike. It was a beautiful California day. And one of the other trainers came out of the gym, and the last thing she said was, be safe. And I was like, I will, I got this, and it was just a joy to finally be on my bike because I had been hit rear-ended by a car and had severe whiplash. And this was the first day that I actually felt strong enough to ride my bike. And I kind of felt like, okay, I'm back. I'm feeling good. And, as a motorcyclist, you really learn to drive defensively, meaning that you really look at your surroundings. Nowadays everybody drives and they text message and they listen to podcasts or whatever we do when we drive. We eat, we put on makeup. When you're riding a motorcycle, you look at your surroundings. And I made eye contact with this guy, and I thought he saw me. And it was just too late. He punched it and T-boned me, and I was thrown about 30 feet. And I instantly felt pain. And looking back, like I can remember every detail of the accident. And for a long time, that replayed in my head every time I would close my eyes. And little did I know that was going to be really not the easy part, because it was hard. I woke up from a coma, and they said they were going to have to amputate my leg. And being a dancer and an athlete, and my drug of choice was actually running. That was where I got my high. That was my medicine. That was my therapy. That was everything. And to have that, being told they're going to amputate your leg, was devastating. But my real journey began later on. After I found one doctor that was willing to save my leg, and I had 34 surgeries to save it. And even saying 34 surgeries now, a lot of times people can't even comprehend like 34 surgeries, but It was, I would have a surgery, then I'd have a day to recover. Then I'd have a surgery, then I'd have a day to recover. And then sometimes I would have 3 months to recover. And then sometimes I would have 6 months to recover, and I would be back in for a surgery. And so it was constantly this up and down. But after 3.5 months, and I thought, well, this is truly the most painful thing I've ever been through. It's the hardest thing I've ever been through. At the time I had a 15-year-old and a 2-year-old, and that was no easy task. And I'd never even been away from my youngest daughter. And I really thought things were just going to get better. It was kind of like I broke my leg when I was a kid, and you break your leg, you heal, you get better, you move on. And I was diagnosed with a nerve disease called complex regional pain syndrome about 3.5 months after my accident. And I'd gone in to see a doctor, and I thought he was going to be so proud of me because I was out of my wheelchair. I was up on crutches, and they said it would take 2 years for me to even be upright and trying to walk again. And here I thought he was going to be so proud. And when I went in, he diagnosed me with this disease, and he said, your life is never going to be the same. You're going to be permanently disabled. You have something very serious. You need to go home, put your leg up, and stay in your wheelchair. And I thought, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't come this far to be basically given like a death sentence is what it felt like. Because, then when I went home and researched what CRPS was, it was really devastating. It's dubbed the suicide disease because it's ranked highest on the pain scale, and there's no known cure. It's a disease of the sympathetic nervous system. And I thought, well, what am I going to do now? Like, you want me to get back in my wheelchair? Like, I've worked so hard only to get this news. And so that's really when I was in the most pain mentally. I was completely broken spiritually, and physically I was broken, but now I felt just broken in every way. And it was at that point in time where I had months of being in a place where I went from having this big world of my own business, and I had a lot of friends, and I was outgoing, and my relationship with my husband was everything we did was active, and I was a very hands-on mom and involved with PTA at school. And I went from having this life of joy to losing my career, to being depressed, to losing my confidence, to, forget about all the scars and everything. I mean, that was one thing to get over, but now I'm stuck in this hospital bed with pain, and you're telling me it's going to be for the rest of my life. It was really hard.
What are the emotions going through your mind when you hear this?
At first, I was in complete denial. Like,
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you even believe it?
no, I was like, this can't be right. And I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I am healthy. I've done everything right. I have taken care of myself. I have worked so hard to do all the right things, and this can't be right. I do not have this disease. And so I was pissed, and I was not going to go back and get my wheelchair. I mean, look, nothing against wheelchairs. My little brother has been in a wheelchair his whole life and doesn't know anything other than that. And so I grew up with that, but that just wasn't what I wanted for me. And so I went to another doctor and I said, "Hey, I have nothing wrong with me. Can you take a look anyway?" And they diagnosed me with the same thing. They're like, "Nope, you've got CRPS." And at the time they called it RSD. And then I was like, "Oh, well, this doctor's wrong." And so I went to another doctor, and the third doctor said, "You have it and you need to start radical treatment."
Wow.
And so that's what I did. So I went from still being in denial to kind of like, well, okay, maybe I can do something about this, and started thinking that, oh, I'm so different. They say there's not a cure, but you watch me. I'm going to be cured. I'm going to be back to running. I'm going to be back to training my clients. And so I tried everything, and we spent thousands and thousands of dollars. We had a lien on our house. We borrowed money from friends. Our insurance and hospital bills were through the roof, and nothing was working. And
Wow.
let me tell you, I was a really easy target for anybody who was a snake oil salesman. I was like, if you say it's going to get rid of my pain, I will do it.
Yeah.
I was desperate. And when nothing worked is when I spiraled further down into that dark depression. And at those moments was when the thoughts of, my husband deserves more. This is not what he bargained for. He could do better than this. He can find someone to replace me. My kids deserve more. They deserve a mom that can be there for them, not that's stuck in the hospital bed or not that's in this much pain and doesn't enjoy life. And so I really was in a place where I did not want to go on living. But I was too scared to die.
Yeah.
And so it was at that moment that I thought, okay, I have got to make a choice. And it took every ounce of energy and courage and everything I had in me, every bit of grit that I had, to reach out and ask for help, to admit that I needed help. I had a big problem, and I couldn't continue going on the way I was. And I think that we all have that light within us, and mine was barely a flicker. It was like barely there. And that little bit that I had, I was like, I need to find a way to make that light burn brighter. I want to have that light inside me again and be vibrant and find joy and be the best that I can be despite this pain. And so that is when...
Before we get into you telling us about climbing out of this pit of despair, if you could just tell me a little bit about what that pain feels like. I know I have a lot of listeners who deal with chronic pain every day. I'd like to give them some perspective so they can maybe think, if she can do it, so can I.
The worst thing I think that we can do is like compare our pain to other, because we all feel pain differently. But so I don't want your listeners to go, oh, well, but she had it so much worse, or, oh, but my pain is worse, or whatever. Pain is pain. And the pain that I have, the disease I have, is called the suicide disease because it's ranked highest on the pain scale. So that means it hurts worse than a kidney stone. It hurts worse than having a baby. It hurts worse than amputation. It's at the top of the list. And it's a burning, aching, stabbing, debilitating pain that never leaves you. And I can say it hurts worse because I've had kidney stones and I've had a baby. And I'm like, yeah, it outranks it. I mean, even sitting here, I'm not having, I guess you would say I'm not having a flare up, but my leg, I'm in pain because I trained clients this morning. I worked out. So I'm sitting and I have my shoe off because my CRPS is in my right foot and leg. So anything that restricts that or puts any kind of pressure, it will cause a flare up. And so if you could see me right now, it's a pretty sight. I'm kidding. It's not pretty. I've got
I think I heard you describe the pain at a 12 when you had the accident. What is it like on a daily basis?
It depends on how much I do and how much I take care of myself. Like so much of our pain, there's so much that we're not in control of. And that's what's so baffling about especially nerve pain, because mine is in my foot, but it's in my sympathetic nervous system. And so even, and just to show that we have so much control over how we perceive it is, if I sit here and talk about my pain and I focus on my pain, guaranteed my leg is going to go from about a 4 on the pain scale to about a 6 on the pain scale.
Wow.
But if I am not focused on it, if I am, and I'm not saying to ignore it, I'm just saying if you can, in those moments of severe pain, distract yourself a little bit. I know that sounds crazy, but for me, when I'm having a really bad leg day, one day it was so bad, I was sitting at the kitchen table. I had already taken my pants off. So I'm sitting at the kitchen table, my pants are off, so there's nothing touching my leg. I had taken my Lyrica, which is for nerve pain to slow that nerve pathway down. That didn't work. I was still in pain. I'm like, I've tried everything. It still hurts. My husband was like, go put your leg in the pool water. The pool's cold. Go put it in the pool. And I was like, okay, I'll do anything. I'll do it. So I went and I put my leg in the pool and it broke that pain cycle.
Really?
More than that, I think it was a distraction from the burning that it had, and it kind of reset the sympathetic nervous system. So I think that mindset and how we perceive our situation is so much. And if I were to sit home and prop my leg up and just think about, oh, woe is me and why me and this sucks, then my life would suck. It would. Yeah. But if I can go out and focus on what I can do during the day and be of service to others and take my mind off of my situation and be of service to others, then I guarantee you I'm going to feel better. Just the other day, my daughter, she loves to run. My youngest daughter loves to run. And she's so much like I was when I was her age. And I told my husband, I said, I just wish we would have so fun. I wish I could run the way that I used to. And he said, well, ride your bike beside her. And I was like, yeah, there's the solution. Like, instead of saying woulda, shoulda, or I wish it was this way, it's like, well, what action step can I take to change it? Or what can I focus on so I can still enjoy this part of life and not feel like I'm missing out because I have this situation? Or I do mostly online coaching, but I still, because I love working with people, I still have a handful of clients that I work with. And I sometimes have people that I set up program design for. And my clients know that when they tell me they can't do something, they know that I am going to figure out another way through the exercise where they can do something, or that figure out a way where, no, they actually can do it. It was just an excuse and they didn't feel like doing it. It's like they can't use those excuses with me.
But of all people, you could use the excuses. You could say, poor me, why me? But why have you chosen to not lean on those and to step out of that?
I want more out of life.
Yeah.
There's so much joy. There's so much excitement and adventure to be had in life. And there is such we have such opportunity, no matter what our circumstances are, to make an impact in this world. And I feel like for me, I know this sounds kind of like, cliche or whatever, but it sounds kind of like, oh, yeah, nothing happens for, like I think this didn't just happen to me for no reason. And I've had to dig deep to find the reason. For me, I give my pain purpose by sharing the tools that I use on an everyday basis to thrive despite it. By being of service to others and sharing these tools, it gives me joy. And I think that my default was never to let's find an excuse. My default was to let's find a way to feel better. And, I grew up in a situation that we all have adversity. We don't have the best childhoods, or we can all, nothing's perfect. But my childhood was not perfect by any means. And my default was to do something to make me feel good. So I got straight A's. I was a track star. I was Miss Greenville High School. I'm not saying all that to say, oh, look how great I am. I'm saying I figured out a way to feel better about myself, even when things didn't feel so great that were my circumstances. I thought, well, what can I do to feel better? What can I do to improve my situation? What can I do to help others? What can I do to be kind, to, just spread a little love and light.
Yeah.
Because we can let our pain make us bitter, or we can, let us make us and others better.
Let's jump back to when you were in that pit of despair and how you got out. I'm guessing a lot of these things we've just talked about were some of the tools you started to gravitate to, the gratitude, the service. How did you get started with that little glimmer of light?
First of all, I had to believe that there was something greater than me, because I was trying to do it on my own. And I thought, we're not meant to do this alone. We are not meant to do life alone.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have done it without having others to help me through, having an amazing community, and having God. Some people say universe or whatever, is your higher power. For me, I call my higher power God. I prayed. I needed to think. I believed that something was going to carry me through. So that's the first thing I did. Was when I was down at my bottom, I got on my knees and I prayed. And then it took every ounce of energy to reach out for help. And the first person I reached out to was like, yeah, let me help you. I'm gonna take you with me to a support group next week. And of course, I never heard that from that person. And I thought, okay, well, that person didn't come through. That didn't work out. So I didn't just go, oh, well, don't have help there. I'm going to give up. I went to the next person and said, hey, do you know of a place where I can get group help? I searched online. I need a support group. And somebody told me, well, you're lucky that you had a community. And I'm like, no, it's not luck. It's hard work, and hard work puts you where your blessings can find you, because
I like
you
that.
have to be willing to be of service to have a community. You can't just take. You have to be willing to get gritty and do the work too. You have to be there for them just as much as they are for you. And that is true community. And when we have community, it's powerful, because when I've been able to share some of my darkest times, and by my darkest times, I mean, that's like my, most humiliating, most desperate, most, times where I was not proud of the actions, not proud of myself for things that I was doing, whether that was drinking too much or not eating healthy or not being a good parent or whatever that was, or not being a good wife. When I was able to share that, and I had some other people go, oh my gosh, I've totally done that too. That is when you make a connection and you think, well, okay, they did that and they got better and they got through it, so I can too. And so I'm just a firm believer that when we come together and we share what works for each other and we build that and strengthen our community, that is when we can have that resilience to move forward. I just recently did a TEDx talk where I shared the tool it's called PACER, and it's a method that I've come up with, which stands for perspective, acceptance, community, endurance, and rest. And so I share these tools, and I'm about to do a free challenge where people can sign up and I talk you through every day of, okay, how can you shift your perspective? How can you look at things differently? How can I snap myself out of feeling like crap and feel better? The next day we'll talk about acceptance, because that was hard for me.
Yeah.
I did not, like I said, I was in denial. I didn't want to accept that I was going to have a life for the rest of my life in pain. I didn't want to accept that I was not doing things the way that I was doing them before, like being the healthiest person that I could be. And so the reason I'm doing this challenge is because when I was in this place where I felt hopeless and I felt like I'm never going to get out of this depression, and it's just going to be like this for the rest of my life. I wish that I had someone with a positive mindset to say, hey, no, look, just try this, see if this works. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I've put together this 5-day challenge to give people community and to give them some tools to overcome whatever life has thrown their way. They don't have to necessarily have chronic pain. When I shared this with my daughter, my oldest daughter, she's like, yeah, Mom, that has definitely helped you. She goes, but it hasn't just helped you with your pain. She said it helped you with your depression, it helped you with your anxiety, and it helped you with your addiction.
Of all of those, and I just love this because perspective is one that really changed my life, really at a core level. Of all of those, which one do you think changed your life the most?
I think that it had to start with really acceptance they're all like, look, community's powerful.
They run together, yeah.
Endurance, you need endurance. You have to be able to get gritty, but being resilient isn't about just enduring pain. It's about how you rest, which is the last part of PACER. And that is a lesson that I keep learning over and over and over, because I didn't want to rest, but we have to rest to reset and to claim our resilience. But it all starts really with acceptance, because if we don't take a look at what is really going on in our lives and get honest with ourselves, then how are we going to fix it? If we're just ignoring, if we're going through life with blinders, and that's whether, we are going through life, not like for me, I was trying to ignore the pain. I was not taking my medication like I was supposed to. I was not eating the way I was supposed to for inflammation. I was doing everything wrong for this nerve disease because I did not want to believe that I had it. So it got so bad that I ended up in the hospital on life support and, in ICU, because I was in denial and I was ignoring all these signs that were right in my face. And that is when I really learned, okay, acceptance. I have to accept this and start to take action steps to make it better. And so acceptance goes for whether you have, if you're drinking too much.
Right.
Well, if you don't take a look at that and start to change your behavior, that could get ugly. That could be accepting that maybe you're not doing the career that really sparks your passion and inspiration inside you. Maybe you need to take a look at that and accept that so you can make a different career move. Or maybe it's your relationship. What are you not accepting about your relationship that you're putting blinders on? So just so you can move forward. So acceptance is really, I don't know if it's the most important, but it's definitely the first step that you have to do to start your healing or your recovery journey, no matter what you're healing or recovering from.
You've experienced this physically, but this is also something people deal with on the emotional level. All of those different examples you gave. I hate to think, what is the ICU version of not dealing with your emotional stuff?
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I'm grateful that that happened because it was really the thing that scared me. It was like, you know what? I feel like the universe gives you little signs, and at first it whispers and goes, "Okay, maybe you shouldn't do that, or maybe you should pay attention to this." And I was just ignoring all the red flags until it had to be like knocked over the head. Like, are you listening now? Like, and when I had 2 different doctors come in and say, if you would have waited one more day, you would have been dead.
Wow.
So I don't want people to get to that point. Take it from me. You don't have to get to that point. Let me tell you right now, you can start recovering and healing right now, and you don't have to go down that far. You know, it's like your rock bottom is as far down as you can just keep digging down, you know, and it's like you can stop digging. You can start just leveling up right now.
How has your mental dialogue changed in this whole journey?
Well, you know what? I feel like I talk to myself a lot. Because I'm telling you, you know, your mind, you can so easily play into that, letting your fear take over. And right before I was going to give my TEDx talk, I'd just gotten out of the emergency room. I had an infection. My daughter had the flu. I was going upstairs in my office and practicing my talk, and I'd go back downstairs and hold the throw up bucket for her, and I threw my back out. So I go upstairs and I'm laying in the middle of the bedroom floor, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to give my TEDx in 3 days. Now, what if I get the flu? What if I catch the flu from her? What if I can't even walk on stage because of my back? And I was just spiraling into this big ball of anxiety.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend texted me and she was like, how are you doing? I was like, I'm awful. It's horrible. Ruby has the flu. I'm getting over my second, round of antibiotics. My back's out. And she texted me one word back. And I had shared Pacer with her, and she texted me back Pacer. And I thought, okay. Perspective, acceptance, community, endurance, rest. And it was like, that's what it took for me to truly use that tool so I would believe in my message even more. So when I walked out on that TEDx stage, I knew it worked for me because all of a sudden my anxiety left. The next morning, because my anxiety lessened, my back felt better. I didn't get the flu. I felt more prepared. And it was like, that's how I talk to myself. When I start to spiral out into like anxiety or fear or sadness or just self-pity, I'm like, okay, let me see how I can shift my perspective. And I focus on the good. I start going down. I believe rituals are really good, and I'm big on a morning ritual. And I get up every day at 5 a.m. because the first thing I do is I listen to some music. It's with the brain technology, and it kind of reboots your nervous system. So I listen to 15 minutes of music, and it's like an active meditation. I take time to journal. I read out of at least 2 of my spiritual books. And then I start my day, because if I don't do that, then I'm a mess. Like I will dive into my emails and go, oh my God, I have to do this and I have to get here, and this presentation's due and this client needs this. Or I'll look at my social media and go, oh my God, look how many comments and I haven't replied to anyone yet. And it's overwhelming. And so I have to start by grounding myself so I can then be the best version of myself and go out into the world and be of service to others.
Absolutely. It starts you on the better foot so you're not out of breath the entire day. Just thinking of that overwhelming feeling without the peace in the beginning almost takes my breath away.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what do you think is one key habit? Maybe it's the meditation or the reading or the journaling, one key habit that helps you stay resilient every day.
Well, I would say something that I've done every single day, at least for the past couple of years, at least, maybe even every day, if not almost every day since my accident, is I've always been a grateful person, but I really believe that if you have a gratitude practice, and by that I mean really every day I focus and say at least one thing I'm grateful for in the morning. And every night when I go to bed, I get in bed with my daughter and we have cuddle time. And then I ask her, what was the best part of your day? And what are you grateful for? Because I think a gratitude practice, when you're feeling grateful, you don't have time for self-pity, or it snaps you out of the mindset of lack.
Yes.
And it puts you in the mindset of what all of, it may be you're grateful that that you're breathing. I'm grateful I'm out of the hospital. I'm grateful that I can walk, even if it's not always the prettiest and I have a limp. Or when I would look down at my leg, I used to hate it because it was so scarred up and deformed. And I was always known for my legs, and now they're deformed. It's deformed. I have scars. Now I look down and I view my scars totally different. I view them as, look at what I went through and I survived. And now I can thrive.
That's amazing. I have done so many stories in my career as a journalist. I did so many stories with people who had chronic pain issues. And because of that, had serious addictions or had kind of underlying depression that they weren't really able to get a hold of because they weren't able to get a hold of the chronic pain. What would be one tip to them?
Ask for help. When you're in pain, or when you're depressed, for me anyway, I was isolated. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. The thought of picking up the phone and making a phone call, it was as if you were asking me to run back-to-back marathons. The thought of it was just too much. And it took every ounce of courage and what it really took was, I was so desperate and so humble and so willing to get better that I was like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to get out of this place. And so I think first of all, you have to be willing, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. And it's the same when clients come to me, or I have somebody that comes to me and says, my wife really needs to talk to you. And I'm like, but is she willing? Does she want to do more? Does she want to do my coaching session? Or, I had someone a parent whose daughter just lost their boyfriend to suicide and said she really needs to talk to you and do some coaching with you. And I'm like, but is she willing? Does she want to do the coaching? Because, and like I had one of my loved ones that is suffering from alcoholism. And, I was in that, but I was after definitely after nothing worked for my pain, I started drinking to try to cope with the pain. And so they knew that I was a recovering alcoholic. And I said, he has to reach out to me. He has to be willing to want it so bad that he's got to be willing, and he's got to want to help himself. And so I think, I know it's hard, and it's some people, if you're listening and you're struggling right now and you're thinking, I don't think I can reach out to anybody. reach out to, I don't care, reach out to me, direct message me, reach out to someone, just do, if that's all you can do today, because that is your first step. That is your first action step to getting better. And I know it takes courage, but your world gets so much better when you can first just admit that, you need help.
Yeah.
Like I needed help. And that was hard to admit. I grew up with sayings like cowgirl up and, suck it up. And how dare, you don't admit that don't admit your vulnerability. Don't admit something's wrong because that's a sign of weakness. And that led me to my strength. That led me to freedom from this disease called alcoholism, freedom from this disease called CRPS, and freedom from this disease of depression, because it's a mental disease. And I think we need to talk about it. I think people need to talk about it more, because so many of us, when we're in pain, we don't talk about it. We hide it. We try to cover it up by shopping too much or eating too much or drinking too much. At least I know that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And until we really learn to look at what is truly going on, it's not going to get better. You can drink all the water, go to the gym, eat as healthy as you can, but if you're not looking at what really is going on in your life, it's not going to get better until you deal with it.
Do you feel like it's a battle every day? Like you wake up every morning and prepare yourself for a mental battle? Or have you kind of gotten it down? Have you figured it out? Are you on habits by now?
No, it's definitely a battle every day. I'm not going to sit here and say I got this. And the minute I think I got this is the minute I'm in trouble, because I need every day, I need my community. Every day, I may be having the best day in the world, but if something comes along and kind of rocks my world, if I'm not grounded, if I have not done my morning ritual, if I have not practiced my meditation, if I haven't checked in with somebody that I'm accountable to, that can take me down. And so, not that, and I'm not saying some days are really easy. Some days are a piece of cake, but there are days that are really hard. And I have to wake up every day and prepare myself, because when you're living with pain, you don't know how bad it's going to get. Like if you have any kind of chronic pain, it's a battle every day, because just planning out your day. I was thinking about this the other day. Before I had chronic illness, I remember I trained 12 to 14 clients a day, and I would get up and I had to be over the hill at 6:30 to start an aerobics class that I taught. And I would get up at 6, throw my baseball cap on, throw some clothes off, and run out the door. Grab a piece of turkey on the way out, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that anymore, because I have to deal with this. And in order to be the best that I can be and to do the best that I can mentally, physically, spiritually, I have to acknowledge that, accept that I can't do that anymore, that it takes me a while just to get up and get moving in the morning. So if I have to be out the door at 7, I might get up at 4:30 because it takes me a while to get moving, to get my body going. I have to prepare myself mentally. And I know that seems like a lot of work, and maybe I'm like really high maintenance, but it allows me to have the life of joy and freedom and endless possibilities when I do those things. It allows me to have the life that I've always imagined and always wanted, despite having this CRPS.
Yeah. What about the mental side of it? Do you still have hard days mentally?
Oh, yeah, almost every day. And I constantly remind myself. And now, let me tell you, this is so, when I was telling my husband about Pacer, And I was telling him, he's like, yeah, you do that. Yeah. Endurance. Yep. You've got that. You've got grit. And then I said, and the last part of pacer is rest. And he's like, you are so full of crap. You do not rest. No, you don't do that. And I said, well, I'm still learning to rest. And I'm still learning to do that. And now that he knows pacer, he can see if I'm struggling or I'm not having the best day, and he will just look at me and go, pacer, Amberly, or he'll look at me when he knows I've pushed myself too hard, and he'll be like, Amberly, where's the R? You're leaving out the R, Amberly. And so it's been it's been sometimes almost comical, because I'm like, I wish I never would have told you about that pacer, because now you're throwing it in my face.
I loved your book. Your book is so well written, and I read a lot of books for the podcast, and this is just one of those that stands out. The writing is so good.
Thank you.
I want to read part of it. You wrote, quote, "What I've learned is life is a series of choices we make regardless of our circumstances. I could either make the choice to give up and let my life be determined by the circumstances, or fight to create something positive out of my circumstances. My choice is to get up and do the best I can each day. My choice is to notice the gifts life offers, which are particularly plentiful when you look for them. My choice is to be happy. I believe in angels. I believe we have the power to see good in every single situation and learn from it," end quote. I want to ask you what the good is in your situation, and I wonder if that goes to your accident. Do you see good in that accident?
When you're in a hard time and if somebody's got cancer, if there's a child that has cancer, how can you at that moment look at the good in that situation? That just sucks.
Right.
I mean, when you're going through a divorce and you're like, my family's falling apart, I never imagined my life was going to be like this. It's real hard to see that good in that situation. But if we don't look at it and look at what we can learn from it, we're going to just stay in that negative, and we're going to stay in that dark, depressed place. But if we can look at that situation, like for me, after my accident, in fact, when I was writing my book, my editor and I got in a full-on argument because he had added all this anger into the book. And I'm like, whoa, what is this part of the book? I never said that. I never felt like that. I never did that. And he goes, well, you have to be angry or people are going to think something's wrong with you. And I said, no, at that moment in time, when I was stuck in the hospital bed, I wasn't focused on the anger because I had to heal. So I focused on everything that I could do to get better, and anger wasn't a part of that. It's okay to be angry, but we just can't stay there. We just can't stay there or we're going to live there, and it's not going to be fun. So in my accident, I had somebody ask me, well, if you could take it all back, would you? And I said, well, I can't, so I don't think that way. I don't think, if I could take it all back, I would. Of course, I would never, ever want anybody to be. It breaks my heart when I meet other people who are suffering even worse than I am with CRPS, and I would never wish this on anybody. But I can tell you, there is a silver lining that has come out of this, because I never thought that I would write a book. And I was inspired to write this book because I wanted to give others the hope that I got from the accident, and the hope that I was given. I want to give that to others so that they can overcome whatever challenges or adversity life has thrown their way. And so the good that has come out of it is it has made my relationship with my husband stronger. It's something like this can tear you apart, or it can create an even stronger bond. And it has bonded us stronger. And I mean, our relationship is much stronger. It hasn't been easy, but it's better. And the good that has come out of this is the community of people that I have met by sharing my story and meeting so many incredible people. I've met people from all over the world. I coach people from all over the world. I have a client in Korea and I have a client in India because it's the power of social media, right? Like,
Yeah.
I started when I knew I was going to write this book. My publisher was like, well, we don't market it, so that's up to you. So I thought, well, I better start an Instagram account and a Facebook. And I had no idea the amount of connections, the amount of people that I would meet. Actually, tomorrow, I have somebody coming to stay with me that I met on social media. She is flying from Michigan to come stay with
Wow.
me. And I never would have met her if I didn't share my story through social media, through my book, through my blog post, through my newsletters. And so that is the good that has come out of this situation, is the power of community.
Yeah. You're providing a lot of hope, and I think it's a really beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you.
Before I let you go, I want to end with this question. This podcast is all about finding more joy in the everyday. What is one tip that you would give to someone to find more joy, whether it's the good, the bad, or the in-between of life?
I think that we don't have to look outside ourselves for joy or happiness, that everything that you need is already within you. And it's just up to us to be able to sit with be in stillness, because it was hard for me to be still, and just pause and look within. And we all have just an infinite well of resource of resilience within us, and we can tap into that and thrive.
Yeah, I love that. What a great answer. Amberly, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for letting me come on and talk with you and share with your audience.
Amberly is an incredible woman. I'm going to link her social media pages as well as her book. You can check it out in show notes. And please, again, don't forget to share this podcast. If this episode touched you and you think it can help someone else, go ahead and share it. And don't forget to subscribe. And I want to thank you for being here on Happiness in Progress.